For now, we're going to be starting on Clamblitz on Inkblot Academy. Probably one of the better Clamblitz maps. Oh, we've got Puni on, so we've got Puni, Lynx, Vix, and Vanilla. So we can look forward to that.
Always interesting to see the Sploosh-matic being broken out in competitive play. And of course, being joined by that Kensa Splattershot, of course, the heavy Splatling Deco. Of course, that Kensa being taken out already in the NZAP for additional coverage. So obviously, the close range game being very much emphasized in that heavy Splatline. There's a lot of emphasis that's going to be placed onto that backline play of that Splatling. Obviously, it's going to be key in order to let those three advance. And obviously, you want to get the rock to the basket, score as many points as possible. But more than one way to skin a cat. It can't all just be rushing up, and realizing that is blue side with the oh wow, they're you could say that they're even more close range than their counterparts. And they get a barrier breakage. Good jump in with the power clam, and piling in the clams already. 44 points on the board.
All right, we've got a lot of specials coming out from Vanilla already. A really nice coordinated push with the Booyah Bomb and the Baller coming in for them. Now we've got the T-Tech here in mid, making sure we've got some control going on. Look, being found by the Slosher over here. But they're still maintaining regardless. Our yellow team over here has plenty of these specials on the go, and with one person going down on the blue team side, it looks like it's going to be their opportunity to shine.
Yeah. And yellow, again with that Splatling play, looking to take out the opposition on the other side. And I would think that the Splattershot Pro would be the de facto backliner somewhat. But even so, you're going to have to get awfully up close and personal. Obviously, showing no fear in that regard. 4-3 on the field right now in favor of yellow, as they're trying to charge in with that NZAP in hand. No power clam, however. Trying to hold off for a push that simply is not coming. And just like that, a team wipe. So blue going to have all the time in the world to cover up midfield.
We have some spectacular defense on the side for our blue team. With the bubbles coming out from that Splatling, they've been holding those on guard for that frontline push for a while. But with the Kensa Splattershot coming out and popping that Booyah Bomb, it destroyed both of the players on that side and prevented them from putting that nice yellow football into that basket.
And obviously the score not quite coming yet, but you got to think with the progress that's being made. However, just as I say that, oh man, the ink brush coming through. Run the fade, kid, says Puny. And the power clam gets dunked in as well. So whatever penalty there was, it is all gone now. And yeah, that hiding in plain sight, getting 11 additional points on the board. Could have been 12. I'm not sure. It's hard to count, folks. Grim Ire. Grimy. Grimy Ire? I'm going to go with that. Grimy Ire.
Grimy deciding to pop these big yellow bubbles for defense. Having those in mid is going to get them a lot of the control that they're going to need to push back out on Vin's team over here.
That is a sea of blue, though.
That is an incredible sea of blue. And with two specials coming up, despite their one pick, it looks like they're still maintaining a large portion of this control. They're not even lacking in the clam department, too, so we might be seeing a push coming from them soon now that this backline has just gone down.
And what I'm noticing is that it's not like they aren't getting their specials are the usual suspects in yellow. It's just that they're not being used in a way that is nearly influential enough on the field. Like they're getting, we saw the Tenta missiles get out, but that was only a mild inconvenience, it seemed like, for their opposition, as Vanilla with that baller online, keeping people away from that yellow power clam, and indeed gets a barrier breakage. Even more being piled onto the board. We could see a knockout here if Vin is successful in bringing the additional clams up, but trying to sneak past. Will it go back up? No, he gets them in and brings the score down to 2 remaining for the knockout win. 98-0 on the board, and the knockout blow is administered. Backline support POG. And yo, that's it, man. Backline support. Who needs a backliner in order to win, though? All you need is the Splattershot Pro, an ink brush, and a lot of guts.
When it comes to clams like that, running a backliner can be a very difficult thing, as the charger, with its reliance on its one shot, can make or break a lot of plays. So a lot of people will switch out their comps for stuff that's a lot more mobile, as you see with what Vanilla and their team brought for us this time around. as we've got at least 2 weapons with the baller attached to them, one of the essential specials that you want to have attached to any of your competitive clan compositions.
True, and obviously we were talking last night, at least I was, with Hitzel, which, by the way, you can always watch the VOD over at twitch.tv/GenGAME. But you can do that later on. Keep it here right now. No, as we're seeing the usual suspects, it seemed like they had the right idea, but obviously Prince getting drawn away from the line of fire onto the ramp, trying to take away that approach, but obviously coming up right through the middle was the coup de grace that was administered by backline support, by BSP, I guess we're going to call him.
Yeah, backline support, definitely not a stranger to any competitive tournaments, regardless of whether they take place online or at LANs. But I believe they are a pickup nonetheless, so I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of stuff they can bring from us coming up. Well, so next we're going to be moving on to Splat Zones on Camp Triggerfish, and I'm not sure how versed you are in the meta when it comes to Splat Zones on Triggerfish, but it can be very interesting as the layout of the whole thing with the big split in the middle makes it become a map that's heavily reliant on well-coordinated 2v2s for the majority of the runtime.
There's no just charging straight up the middle. With
Not
Camp
particularly,
Triggerfish.
especially if people are running chargers.
But yeah, and I noticed that, especially when you have all those ledges, you can also check the front part of the opposing side zone as well. But as we get set for that, as Grimy looking to decide on what exactly they were doing, and obviously a backliner who was going to try to have a little bit more of an influence on this particular game. Could we see the switch to the splatter scope, perhaps? As we see the green, indeed, there it is. Going to be setting their sights on a Game 2 victory and tying this bad boy up at 1. And as we see the rest of their setup, this Kensa Splatter Shot Pro coming out once again, a Tri-Slosher and Vanilla Splatter Shot joins them. And along the other side for backline support POG, the Kensa, the Soda Slosher. Camo, we've seen that Camo Tentabrella quite a bit in this mode as well, especially on Camp Triggerfish. Did quite well for a few teams. Vin gets taken out, however. Yeah, take your Brella and shove it, says Grimy. Well, and the ostensibly the backliner, the Jet Squelcher.
Like we had mentioned earlier, running the backliner makes it very incredibly difficult to run up to mid and make any of your pushes like you had mentioned earlier. This map in particular, though, is the place where the camo tent rises to shine, and here he comes climbing up that wall, prepping his partner to be ready to push up, but unfortunately goes down to a really well-placed knife. Now Vanilla's going to be popping that special, getting ready to paint that zone in their favor, but it gets taken out by the Stingray, taking out another person. So now the only people left on backline POG is going to be the Kensa Shot, trying to recuperate on this wall over here.
And no penalty incurred takes the timer down even more. 30 points on the board already, and they are not done. The usual suspects. Shout out to Brad Pitt, by the way. Great movie. But also pretty decent team, it turns out. They are looking like a new team. A well-timed splashdown gives them control. However, good stuff by backline support to take the opposite side, while the usual suspects were worried about taking the other zone. So now it seems to be a game of keep away. However, Green getting pushed out. Lynx and Puny looking to come in, and indeed, Lix coming in and providing some support. And they're finally going to get some official points on the board, Stellar. But it looks like, unless they can win more of these 1v1s, especially up close, and Prince, it's going to be tough to do when you have that Tri-Slosher in hand. But I mean, you gotta engage at some point or another, and it seems like backline support is going to be going to have to bank on that sort of advancing guard Camo Brella play there.
Yes, and they've got a
double slap by Prince. Excuse me.
For the majority of that bush for the backline support here, we had the camo tent over here doing their prime job and pushing away, maintaining a really nice position with 3 people on them regardless. Now we've got the backline POG pushing in and getting the lead, taking over that 50 point. Now we've got the splatter shot. If they can get in position and knock around this backliner, they're going to have a prime case to be able to push us even farther past 30.
And indeed they do. Well, they get it to 30 points remaining. So right now it would be 70-49 if the game were to end. However, the game ain't over until the Fat Lady sings Stellar. And indeed, Usual Suspects trying to sing a different tune here, but backline support POG getting them all out of key here, down to the last 10 ticks of the clock. And now it seems that Usual Suspects, their last stand, if it's going to incur, it's going to incur here. However, that Splatterscope was the only thing really keeping them there. Kaworu is there to provide some support, but Licks with that little bit of range, just on the very cusp of the splatter shots range, keep them in control, and finally at least latching on a penalty, so buying them a little bit of time.
Yeah, and finding a penalty on Camp Triggerfish can be one of the most difficult things to manage, as you have to maintain control of your zone and theirs. You for a lot of them, you essentially have to get a full or majority team wipe in order to incur one, and now that's what we've got. Backline POG maintaining now. We've got the Splattershot Pro clocking down on these special points as they're in their spawn getting ready to support the team back and push. But here comes the Stingray, another incredibly powerful weapon to be bringing to Camp Triggerfish. Despite the more rampy kind of terrains we've got, 2 people are going down again, and now Backline POG is going to be asserting another full push on their base.
I do respect the Stingray pick, mostly because, I mean, it's just like using a projectile in Smash, and I think I mentioned this last night as well. You don't necessarily need to use it in order to hit somebody, but you can use it to dictate movement. You may not know where they're going, but you know exactly where they won't. And now, as we see the Usual Suspects trying to fight back, however, they're going to lose control, and Grimy going to try to ink as much of the opposite side as possible. 3-3 on the field, and the clock is ticking down. Desperation mode for Grimy, and indeed, oh, but they get it right back. BSP, unrelenting. They take it to 2-0, and the Usual Suspects look like they're getting caught with their pants down here. As we go into game number 3, some changes absolutely have to be made, but as we're seeing, Stellar, some steps in the right direction.
Definitely. So there were definitely a lot of steps in the right direction as Usual Suspects actually maintained a huge amount of control for the majority of that match. They found themselves having a much harder time as the backline support POG team got themselves together and got their more coordinated pushes going on. But as we mentioned at the beginning of that match, the backliners played a huge role in that, as their charger player Grimrider was doing an amazing job sniping down that Tenderbrella and keeping them from harassing their team on that side for the majority of the opening.
So as we see they're now up 2-0, our BSP, and Usual Suspects not looking as imposing as you would like them to, considering how in your face a team that they're trying to bring out. Grimy, I mean, putting in that work on the back line, and it seemed like they were the last person standing, but ultimately just not there enough to support the front line, as we saw. But BSP, the team of Vin, Puny, Vanilla, and Licks, I mean, they've it's really been a lot of no real highlight reel plays on their part. It's just been very meat and potatoes, get the knockouts, get the wins, and try to survive in advance. Seems like they're doing so just fine, but Usual Suspects, they're going to have to change something.
Yeah, and if you're looking for highlight reel plays, it's possible that Blackbelly Skate Park is going to be the place you get them. Is that unlike a lot of the maps we've been seeing earlier, it's very condensed, and with Rainmaker coming up, there's going to be a lot of high-speed plays, lots of fast decisions to be made. So maybe this change in layout is going to be what Usual Suspects needs to turn this around to their favor.
Exactly, and you know what? Nothing will make a highlight reel quite as quick as a reverse 3-0 as a tournament. The Usual Suspects are going to have to put on their hard hats and punch in for work if they want to get this thing done. Either way, shout-outs to Kazuchika Okada. It's time to make it rain on Blackbelly Skate Park. As we see the Splattershot Junior being broken out on POG, alongside that Jet Squelcher,
The custom Jet Squelcher?
Yeah, the custom Jet Squelcher. Yes, thank you. As well as the Tenatech and the Soda Slosher for BSP, Usual Suspects. Not a whole lot of change. They're kind of sticking with their guns here, except 2 splatter shots up front to go along with that Tri-Slosher.
All right, Pog's found
I do like that, honestly. I mean, you know, you have the mobility, you have everything. I do question the heavy, but that's just me.
And it looks like it might still remain questionable as they've gotten a lot of picks. The majority of this Rainmaker bath has been painted, and Pog is putting a lot of work putting this down. They've pushed this Rainmaker to 9 points before we've had usual suspects be able to come down and counter this. They're getting the pop, and it looks like they got enough picks on the backline Pog to keep their control in their area. Now they're going to have the opportunity to accumulate their specials and make this turn around in their favor.
Now the usual suspects, I mean, you talk about a dream start to a match, and then you talk about a 91-0 lead right off the jump. However, you really do kind of have to keep moving forward, and you can't just sit back and play defense. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, especially in Rainmaker. And BSP, as finally the usual suspects start to advance, some support coming in from the side, but clearly not enough. They're just not winning enough of these one-on-one interactions, Stellar.
Yeah, and with the left side half-pipe push, it's definitely one of the more difficult drawn-out pushes that you can click on Black Belly. So they found themselves heavily contested in that congested area. It's one of the pushes that's going to take the most amount of ground to cover and get you the least amount of points in the process of doing that. So now we've got Pog getting ready, losing their initial frontliner and going down not too far from the barrier to this Tri-Slosher. So they're not going to be able to push too much farther now. They've got the T-Tech in mid clocking down on their Inkjet soon, so they're going to be able to have some hard defense if they're going to need that in the next coming plays.
Prince going to charge forward right into the shot of that Rainmaker. Try to cover as much ink as humanly possible. Squiddily possible. I'm not going to try to dwell on that. Either way, Puny with that jet squelcher. As you see, I mean, you might as well cover up your back line. It's not like they're going to make it that far in towards your area. Just because, oh wait, Puny, okay. Now we're going to see the backliner charging up with the Rainmaker, and yeah, I guess that speaks to logic, doesn't it?
All right, we were going to have a nice intense battle with this Tri-Slosher coming in on this Rainmaker, getting them down before they do any more detrimental plays on their point system over here. Now the armor's coming up, but unfortunately it doesn't keep up long enough to protect them. Now all they have to do is move this heavy splatting, and they'll be able to move this Rainmaker forward as they maintain the control on usual suspects' base.
Oh, the trade being had, and now Prince tried to grab the Rainmaker, it seemed, but the Rainmaker being reset, and a solid defense being played by the usual suspects, preventing that push forward. And now, if BSP want that knockout victory, they're going to have to work for it. But the time of possession, Stellar, steadily in the favor in the BSP. As I stumble over my words, but no stumbles from BSP there. They are doing quite well at keeping track of the objective, and also just in terms of engaging with the usual suspects. Even though they were down on the field for a short while, it seems like they're doing just fine in terms of their positioning, in terms of pushing this thing forward. And even though the usual suspects advancing it, getting themselves 27 points on the board, it doesn't really seem like BSP are all that threatened. They're well in position to deal with. Oh, just as I say that, grimy.
And you see, there's actually a reason for that too. As you saw, the usual suspects actually doing a well job at regaining control in mid and getting their Stingray ready for a push. But we had the Jet Squelcher player on the other team ready to counter that with their own Stingray, taking out that green Stingray almost instantly and making sure they didn't push that farther than their own low ground.
Letting the Rainmaker bubble pop, and trying to at least slow down their approach. And as you can see, that Jet Squelcher well in position to guard the advancement of the usual suspects, who are going to have to make the charge here. It's now or never, but indeed it looks like it's going to be never. As the clock ticks down, so does the hopes of the usual suspect